name is Katie Cleesby, and I am filling in today for Katie Christelle. Unfortunately, she had a family emergency that she had to attend to. So I am here in her place, just different Katie today for the pre and post show, and also the webinar on writing techniques for aquatics professionals. I just want to make sure everybody can hear me. If you can hear me and see me, if it looks like, if you can type in the chat box. Looks like some people are, I can hear you, excellent. And I have also put down the phone access number. There's Philadelphia for the United States numbers. Please use the participant pin, not the presenter pin. So this is my first time going around with this. I accidentally copied both, and then there's a Canadian one on there as well. So for Toronto. But thank you so much for joining us today. And if you're just coming in, welcome. If you could just type your name and where you're from and how you're doing, and we will get started with some questions for our pre-show. So let me just grab those quickly here. So talking about writing for aquatics professionals. Awesome. Hi, Lynn from Allentown, Pennsylvania, Oakland, Maryland. Awesome. Lots of folks here from Pennsylvania, looks like. Awesome. And that's a state I have not visited yet. I'm from New England area. I grew up in Massachusetts and moved to New Hampshire. Now I'm down in Virginia. Welcome. And so I would just love to know if you pop in just your name, where you're from, and what some of the goals that you have in mind that to coming today's webinar. So, you saw the big list of all the topics that are we've been presenting for the last month and a half, and why this one? So some things that you're looking to take away, that you're struggling with, that you're looking forward to hearing about. If you want to go ahead and put that in the chat box. Oops. And I am just bringing up questions here, some pre-show questions. So we are talking about writing for aquatics professionals. So if you want to go ahead as you come in and just type some goals, things that you're looking for. Oh, Prince Albert. I'm not sure what that is. Welcome, everybody. Looks like we're building our attendees here, 22. I know we've got about 350 signed up, so hopefully those folks will be coming in closer to 1 o'clock. And unfortunately, if you're just coming in, Katie is on a family emergency today, so I'm filling in for her. And so a little bit about my background. I've been working on my doctorate and doing a lot of writing. So when Katie was setting up these webinars, she asked me if I would do something on writing for aquatics professionals. And throughout the last 2.5, 3 years, lots of reading and writing. So hopefully I will share some of those tips and tricks as I work on my dissertation and to share with you today. So maybe you have some pet peeves too as you're coming in, or other than your goal, if folks are still coming in, write down what you'd like to see today, or if you do have some pet peeves on when you see the emails coming in on your desktop, or maybe you're a supervisor and you receive some proposals. Making connections and communication. Excellent. Yes, we will definitely cover those two aspects. Writing is one of the #1 forms of communication, especially during COVID-19, where we're putting everything in text and email and utilizing our verbal in-person communication, but writing it down in form, that different format. So, and definitely the connections that we need to make too, virtually, in place of those in-person connections. So great. I'm looking forward to covering that topic. Is anybody else maybe you're just looking for basic tips on emails, or if you're looking for some inspiration for journaling, or you've always wanted to write a proposal for a new project or activity that You want to put across your supervisor's desk, but you're not sure how to get started, or maybe you've got writer's block. So if you're just coming in, I am Katie Cleesby, and I am subbing today for Katie Crysdale for the pre and post show and for my webinar. She had a family emergency. So if you're just coming in, please put your name and where you're from. I'm today coming to you from Ashburn, Virginia, so it's pretty nice out outside. We are still working from home. We're doing a flip-flop scheduling based with Loudoun County as far as where I work for. I'm the aquatics coordinator for Loudoun County. You know, we're working on some virtual videos right now. So we had some fun doing that yesterday, where we made some virtual programming activities, and I did some videos outside for some dryland exercises as well. So hi, Damaris. Thank you for coming. Shout out to my friend Damaris in Pennsylvania. I actually have a tip or trick from Damaris in my PowerPoint later on. Looks like how to propose a new program or restart a former class that needs an update. Excellent. So we'll learn different tips and tricks today to justify how you do a proposal and you know, referencing and the importance of your updates and making it sound clear and concise and worthwhile and bring value to the things that we do in aquatics. So Tiffany, looks like I would love to talk about writing policy and procedure manual for a new facility. Great. Yes. This is the time to be updating your manuals, and whether it's a lifeguard manual, swim instructor manual, camp counselor manual, even a training manual as well. These are great things for folks to be working on from home and making sure that they sound professional and that you've got the right grammar there and the right verbiage and usage, and following that. Oh, thank you, Damaris. I would love to talk about writing policy and procedure manual for a new facility. Okay. So yes, definitely you'll need all those things in place for a brand new facility. My advice there is don't reinvent the wheel. We've all got our policies and things in place. Obviously, you'll want to update and revise and make corrections based on your new facility, but definitely network and get as many opportunities and resources you can from other folks around you, and use that as your template. So work smarter, not harder. That's my advice. Hi from High River, looking for an update on a lifeguard manual. So yeah, today we were talking about techniques and tips, so not necessarily content. Maybe we can do that for a different webinar for lifeguard manuals and things like that, but definitely it will, I'm hoping today will give you the inspiration and the techniques that you will need to move forward. So if you're just coming in, welcome. I'm Katie Cleesby, different Katie, and I'm just filling in for Katie. She had a family emergency she had to run off to. I just got the call like 10 minutes ago. So she said, "You're on your own. Can you do it?" And I said, "Let's try it. Let's go." Just like all this, we're in new territory here with COVID-19. So here I am doing my first pre and post show from webinar. So thank you everybody for bearing with me. And we'll get started in about 15 minutes here. So I'll ask another question here. So what are some examples in the aquatics industry or times that you've had to really dig into your writing skills? Has there been a time where you've had to come up with something and you had a hard time getting started? Yes, new Katie, just different color hair. In United States Katie, maybe Canada Katie, or maybe in COVID-19, do you find yourself writing more? I find myself, my email inbox is blowing up, just keeping track of all the emails, and I'm typing more and more. North Vancouver, welcome. So if you find yourself writing more, maybe yes or no, you can chat in the chat box there. Have you taken the time maybe to journal this phenomenon? I know a lot of people for my dissertation topic has changed in my cohort for my doctorate have changed their dissertation topic based on COVID-19. One of the members in my doctoral cohort she's working as in a hospital right in New York City. So she wants to totally change her direction on the meaning and what it's been like to go through what it's like for her in the hospital and interview folks. So I wonder if this has changed things for aquatics too. Writing a proposal for adding a position to increase staffing. Great. And again, it's all about justify. Why? Because, staying ahead of all those questions that they're going to ask you: for whom, for what, why, where, how is this going to help us? How is it going to benefit us and them? What's the financial implications? So all those good questions, making sure that you reference maybe some scholarly or finding some great articles out there, that you've got your data from credible sources and you're not just coming up with information because you think it would be a good idea. The more that developed those proposals sound for increased staffing, the better that when someone's reading them, they'll know you did your homework and this is will bring value for your organization or your pools or your staffing. So another way to a pre-question here would be, I think about writing, and it doesn't necessarily have to be writing a dissertation or a book or journaling. It can just be, and today we're going to talk about that, just emails. Just short, it's on bulletin boards. It's in our daily lives, even just a Facebook post or an Instagram post too. So important, these little tiny tips and tricks to maintain professionalism and to bring value to your opinion, and people take you seriously the way you say it, how you say it. So that's really my goal for today too. And I wonder what your thoughts too and opinions are on generational differences. So I know our lifeguards in the lifeguard office, they're constantly texting, right? So is that a form of communication? Texting, is that a form of writing? Is writing a lost form of communication? I know we're not instructing kids on cursive, and gosh, I don't even carry a pen very often anymore. I'm pretty tech savvy, so everything's in my notes on my phone or on OneNote, on Microsoft Office. And when folks ask, do you have a pen? I don't. So we're, thinking about too the different generational aspects of writing, and keeping those basic building blocks of writing, whether it's in a text message, a blog, a website, an email, things like that. So hoping to bring those pieces along as we age. My daughter 14 was instructed in cursive. That's great. I think everybody should. I think they should still teach it. Definitely it teaches us at least a form of formal handwriting and things like that. So all interesting questions. For those of you who just came in, Katie Christelle had a family emergency. So she called me about 20 minutes ago and said, can you do this on your own? Do you want to cancel? Do you want to reschedule? And I said, let's do it. So our thoughts are with her and her family, and it's just me today. So different face, different Katie, and talking about some different aspects of writing and what brings the professionalism and that extra spark to aquatics. Shout out to my friend Maris, actually, who inspired me to keep writing and about aquatics and things like that. She's published a couple articles in Aquatics International. And actually, my dissertation for my doctorate proposal is on aquatics. So I'm working on coming up with a training certification program by interviewing lifeguards guarding open water triathlons. So I'm looking at a qualitative design where I'm going to be interviewing lifeguards who have just guarded an open water triathlon and their decision making. So really kind of interesting concept combining triathlons, and I found there's not a lot out there. Would love to talk with you. Looks like Mike, I do water safety for tryouts. Awesome. Would love to chat later on. Nice to be back and part of this. Great. Yeah, so very interested in this paper. Yeah, so it's my dissertation topic. So I'm going to be looking for the candidates to interview at some point. I've done some practice interviews already, but it's really focusing on the decision making of open water triathlons. And so the goal is to come up with some sort of a quick online training we can send out to those lifeguards that on Friday night you find your 6 lifeguards and throw them on a kayak and have them watch this webinar, but not this one, but something that I come up with. So we'll see. So it looks like we've got 60 employees or attendees, I should say, coming in. So welcome. We'll get started in about 9 minutes. And I've got about 44 slides for you today. On writing techniques for aquatics professionals. And we're just kind of talking about right now, if you first log in, please say your name and where you're from, and maybe a goal or something you'd like to learn or take away today, or a question you might have. Hi, Joey. I loved Joey's webinar last week. I actually designed a lot of my slides like Joey's because I liked how fast-paced he was. Hello from Maine. Oh, I miss my New England roots. Who else do we have here? Alberta, some folks from Illinois, Michigan. Excellent. I just love these webinars. You can see people from really all around the world. It's so cool how, silver lining of COVID-19 that's brought us all together in ways that we never could have imagined. So excellent. If you are coming in, if you can, please just put your goal or something you want to learn or why you're here. Obviously, you looked down the list today or this week, the last couple webinars on POOLaide and said, oh, that's interesting. I think I'll go on that one. Why? Would you like to learn how to inject personality into writing skills while remaining professional? That is a great goal. I love that. Personality. And I think it's definitely, you're able to do that. It's just how you do that. And your style, your own little, your own take on how you write your sentences and in a well-developed, like you said, professional way. So we will definitely cover that today. Yay, Deborah Richardson is our aquatics programmer. Shout out to Deborah at Clodmore Recreation Center. Not having everything come across as rushed or short. Yes, I would agree with that. And that is something that I need to work on as well as an aquatics professional. I think it's challenging sometimes when we have so much under, that we're working with lifeguard classes, swim lessons we've got a lot going on. I've got swim lane rentals and maintenance for a pump room. And there's only 7.5 hours in the day that you work and not enough time. So you get to those emails and you just getting it done. And sometimes it's important for us to stop and read and think about our response, get all the facts, and then make a solid response. And that's something that I also need to work on. But not too long. Yes, succinct and to the point, and we'll talk about that today. Ooh, okay, interested in how this webinar can help me in grant writing and corresponding with elected officials and higher ups. Great. And I think when you're talking about grant writing and elected officials and higher ups, that's when you want to bring in some referenced Aquatics International or our articles, things that are edited and cited multiple times too for much of my dissertation. It just brings value, when you're attaching scholarly articles or you're using some sort of an APA format or something, or just referencing according to an article found in blah, 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 that other people seek the similar opinion. So excellent. I think that's great. There's so many grants out there that go unused. I remember one of my first jobs was at Franklin Parks and Rec in New Hampshire. I was an FS, a front desk supervisor, and she had me. I wrote a grant for just updating our basketball hoops. It was a really simple grant and just stating why it was important. And it was 2 pages on just as simple as like justifying why it was important to get these new hoops and what it was going to do for our community, and really thinking outside the box about how it's going to connect and programs that we could do and how it's going to help us financially. And and we got it. So that was my first, take at grant writing. Hello from Brampton, updating the aquatics manual for young staff and management wordage. Yes, definitely. We work with unique generations where we are working with our teenagers from 15 on, and they're still learning. So we're in this unique position where we can really be role models in the way we speak and present ourselves, and the way that we come across. And I think it's important to, even we have our Root Me message board. I'm always still like revising too. Like I'll use a little star or saying, Veronica and I, or recorrecting. And I just think it's important too that we hold ourselves to the highest standards so that they know when they're getting out in the workforce that, this is what it looks like. Okay, excellent. ABC First Aid in Aquatics from Toronto. ABC First Aid in Aquatics. Huh, okay. Excellent. So a couple more minutes, 3 minutes here. And it looks like we've got 105 attendees now. So welcome. My name is Katie Cleesby, and I'm subbing today for Katie Christelle. I think I'm saying her last name right, but she had a family emergency. So I'm just jumping on board here to do the pre. Usually she would do the pre and post show with us. And then we have our regular webinar today at 1:00. So hello from YMCA Casper, Wyoming. Great, Stephanie. Virginia Beach. Brittany Waltz from Virginia Beach, Virginia. We just bought a beach house in Norfolk, Virginia. So we've been enjoying running on the boulevard and biking around Virginia Beach area. We were just down there last weekend. Excellent. YMCA from Greenwich, Connecticut. Great. Arizona. Awesome. And I'm from New Hampshire and Massachusetts originally. My undergrad was in physical education at Springfield College. So I played volleyball there. I'm 6'2". You can't tell because I'm sitting down now, but we were in Connecticut a lot for playing different teams for volleyball. Texas. Great. Welcome. All right, Veronica, holding down CMRCC in Sterling, Virginia. Thank you so much for joining. So exciting. I have the support from my direct reports. Thank you, ladies. Okay. Hi, Katie. Missed everyone from AOAP this year. Yes, I was not at AOAP last year. I had a couple local conferences in Virginia area, the RPS and so forth, so to go to. So, okay. So if you're just coming in, if you want to just put your goals, we have about 2 more minutes left for things you want to learn and or your pet peeves for emails or proposals, or maybe your pet peeve is when you do receive an email from a lifeguard and they're using like LOL and UR and I don't know, or spacing. Maybe that's just me, but buenos dias from California. Oh, great. Awesome. Thank you so much for everybody joining us. Got about a minute left. Danville, Virginia. Welcome, Brittany Waltz. Teams versus emails versus text messaging versus other written communication. So I don't have the formal answer on that, but I will say that my personal opinion is to always be professional, whether it's a text message or an email. But I'm all for, as Joey would say, with them with the new generation, and jumping on board the way they speak and the way they communicate. Joey, where is Miss Christel? Her husband had a medical thing that she had to deal with. So she literally called me 30 minutes ago and said, "Can you do this? I gotta go." So here we are. So Joey, maybe if you don't mind joining me for the post show, I'd love to have somebody else to kind of go back and forth with. I can make you a presenter after. Okay, so it's 1 o'clock. So I'm gonna go ahead and load my, let's see, sounds good. Thanks, Joey. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and load the presentation. All right, can everybody see that? If you can just put something in the chat that yes. Okay, great. Thank you so much. I want to just make sure I'm doing this right. This is my first time and I'm using her account. Okay, so welcome. My name is Katie Cleesby, and I'm coming to you today from Ashburn, Virginia. A little bit different version of Katie. She is dealing with a family emergency right now. So thank you for coming. And let's see, next slide. Okay, so my background is in physical education, so Springfield College in Springfield, Massachusetts, and then all while I was, 16, I was a lifeguard, taught swim lessons at the local pools and things like that. My master's is in athletic administration, and I am now working on my doctorate for executive leadership. We look at leadership, culture, learning, and change in organizations. So it's been really interesting. We have a cohort of about 13 folks from all across the country, and from police officers and medical fields and aviation, and I'm aquatics, and we talk about leadership in different facets of those settings. So really interesting. So I taught 10 years for phys ed, and then I really wanted to be an athletic director, but could never quite go through that glass ceiling as a female in the athletics world. So my in was aquatics. And so I accepted a position as aquatics director at Phillips Exeter Academy. I don't know if you guys know, that's where like Mark Zuckerberg went and the Olsen twins. And then I moved down to Virginia. So now I'm the aquatics coordinator at Clodmore in Virginia, Sterling, Virginia. Okay, so goals for today, our learning objectives, I'll talk about those in a second. So we're going to talk about who, the what, the where, and the why of writing, why it's important, and where we're going with it. And some of you have already talked about different goals that you want to achieve today, and different steps to professional writing and parts of a professional email. So I know email is such an important part of our communication these days, and so many mistakes that I've seen. So I want to make sure that we cover that as well, and different tips and tricks, and just encouraging everybody to write for maybe an aquatics publication at some point. Okay. So the learning objectives, the goal here is so for you guys to learn different skills and support your business writing and the recreational workplace. So I wanted this to be multifaceted, not just for lifeguards and aquatics, but for all of the recreational workplace. And also to use strategies for your business writing and identify the different parts of a professional email, and to be able to access different approaches. Really think about, how your approach is, whether you're writing a proposal or an email, or something, a new step or activity. Okay, the next slide. So the who. If you look at the who, it's recreational leaders, it's park officials, community supervisors, really anybody who has access and interacts with the public. So when you're working with the community and you're representing a business or an organization, you need to sound and look professional. Because, we're talking with parents, we're having different meetings every day. We're working with the patrons. We're sending rec track emails and invoices and things like that, and with different members of our team. So really writing occurs in every single way, whether we're texting someone on a group me, putting a simple Facebook post, it's anybody. So we want to make sure that when we do represent ourselves, it's in the best way possible. Okay, the why. So why is this important and why are you here? Well, writing is really the primary basis upon which we're judged based on our learning and our intellect. So unfortunately, when you're meeting someone for the first time or we're sending something out to a stranger on an email, that's how you're starting to learn about that person and where they're coming from. So it's important too that we have ideas and that we're writing them down in a way that we convey it to see our peers. And sometimes we don't even know our own thoughts until we put them down too. And number two, writing equips us with the communication and thinking skills. So like I said before, sometimes we don't know how we feel about something until we process it or journal it, or we start typing and our thoughts start coming up on the page. And so it's a great way for us to foster an ability to explain and refine our ideas and really present them to other people. So explain our thoughts. And again, it brings value to what we do, right? So one could say that, in a time of crisis, is aquatics essential? But we're here to say, yes, it is. It's absolutely essential. It's part of the mental health processing. It's part of physical activity. It's part of what makes up recreation. And John Dewey was the one who came up with that word recreation, because we're really recreating our personalities, how we interact with the world, how we learn. We're recreating, and aquatics is part of that. So it brings value. It justifies our programming. We talked about different goals in the pre-show, and we're referencing our activities and defends our job. So it's so important to have good writing skills, because when you don't need it until you need it. And it really creates that first impression and puts us on a pedestal too. When you know someone who speaks well and writes well, that they are going to get the job done, the business. Next slide. These are loading a little bit slow here. Okay, so this cartoon, I just thought it was cute. I know it's kind of fuzzy at the bottom here. If you write your autobiography when you're old, you can see where you've been. If you write it when you're young, you can see where you're going. So obviously autobiographies are written most of the time in the past tense about, what's happened in your life so far up to that point. So I mean, this cartoon, I thought, speaks to the overall reflective activity of writing, that writing is both reflective for both past and present, right? So it helps us understand the past and where we've been. So as aquatics professionals, looking at what happened last summer, is there something we want to change about when we're training our new lifeguards for the first time? What happened last year? What do we want to do this year? Are there show notes for today? Yes, they should be on the website for LakeviewAquaticConsultants.com. And so if you look at your past summer programming, what worked and what didn't, and where do we want to change? So I thought this was cute, just to think about how we think of writing. Thanks, Joey. Appreciate it. Okay, so this is a discussion question. I wanted to try to make this interactive. So if you could go ahead and type in your thoughts on the chat here. Why does writing matter in aquatics? So why is it relevant? We could argue that so much of our work entails that physical interaction, the physical work in the pump room, physical training with the lifeguards, in a physical actual pool space. So why is it important for our aquatics professionals to have writing skills? So I can start to see here great answers: evaluation, legislative requirements, excellent, safety procedures and policies and training, legalities, education, connection with facility guests, yes, excellent. Record keeping is huge. And I know right now staff communication is equally important as well. Clear procedures and guidelines. Oh, I love that, Mary. Managing up. Accident reports, publishing, justify need for your training. These are all great answers. Thank you so much for engaging and adding in your opinions. Appropriate description of aquatic programs. Yes, thank you, Maya. Jody, the industry is constantly changing and we need to keep up with that as well. So I would agree. And definitely the common theme there, communication with everyone and positivity. Yes. So I love the process and procedures. I think when we do have good, nice, clear, concise policy and procedures, it doesn't leave much room for thinking about, well, what did she mean by that? If you know exactly, if you've written it well, then it's clear. So, okay, great. Thank you so much for your feedback. Okay, so this next slide was actually a quote that my professors at school have been putting up on their slides for the last month or two, that I write because I don't know what I think until I read what I say. And this was powerful to me because we often don't know how we think or feel about something until the words come up on the screen or on a journal or on a Facebook post. And sometimes, I've caught myself with Facebook posts that are all of a sudden 3 paragraphs and I had no idea that I wanted to say that much. So thinking about that writing could be a great way for you to just, a brain dump. Get it out from your head, right, to the page or the screen or the cell phone or whatever that looks like for you. And this is a great time right now to do that, to journal, to write lists of ideas that you have always wanted to do. I know I've always wanted to do the videos that we've been doing for aquatic programming, and I'm so excited that we're finally doing that now. So, okay. So for the what, let's see if it hopefully loads. So writing occurs everywhere, like we talked about. I mean, it's on the billboards when we're driving, it's on signs, verbiage, our daily emails. I mean, I know our daily emails, mine have increased exponentially during the stay-at-home order. We're writing emails and text messages to friends and coworkers and families to stay connected and stay in touch. Articles for the latest aquatics and recreational updates, Aquatics International, different aquatics magazines and publications. We're writing proposals, like we talked about, procedures, events, the way we reshape our culture and workplace, the tone of our emails and how we say it shapes our culture as well. Newsletters, right? So there's different samples. I know the Red Cross has templates for newsletters for swim lesson programs and things like that. We're doing newsletters for camps and parks programs, websites. A lot of us are rebuilding, rewriting, revising everything right now. It's a brand new world. So it's vital to sound and look professional while we're looking at our swim lessons, our lifeguard programs, our maintenance, our programming, aqua fitness, rentals, all of the above. Okay. Okay, so where? And I found this little graphic. I thought it was a good connection because it shows someone writing everywhere, right? In today's day and age, you can take your laptop, your iPad, your cell phone, wherever you want to go. So I know that I will write from home. I'm doing my homework at home and obviously in the professional workplace. Maybe you're blogging on a family vacation. Maybe you're at an educational setting when we do have cohort. Other than staying at home virtually from COVID-19, we're at my class is at GW at the Ashburn campus. Maybe you're writing at a conference for VRPS or whatever, AOAP, or a class. So obviously different forums. Okay, so the benefits of writing here. So the first one, it provides communication and clarity, right? So unlike talking, when you write, it looks a little bit more sophisticated. And we use words to describe, and it creates expressions to understand what you have in mind, to convey your thoughts to somebody else, right? So this helps you build a structure that really will allow you to express yourself and better communicate those complex ideas in a more effective way. Number 2, it eliminates stress, right? Like we talk about that brain dump. just get an open notebook that I have one for just random ideas, or, that moment right before you go to bed at night and you think, oh, I meant to do that today. You just put it right there. But in the same way that you empty your mind, that you're capturing everything that comes to it, you can eliminate stress by just developing your ideas and putting it down and rationalizing it in an abstract way. So, and then number 3, it allows us to be more productive. Lists, right? If you just say, oh, I'll remember that. I'll remember the ketchup and, I need to get bread at the grocery store. Write it down, then, so we don't forget it. So it helps us to be more productive. Number 4 is learning. Obviously, the more you read and write, the better you get at it. So just not everybody I know is in a doctorate program, but if you take a class, the more you're reading, if you have listened to even a podcast, or the more you listen to, the more verbs and words that you hear going through your head, reading and writing, the better overall your skills are going to get. So, and then number 5, awareness of your reality. So what do you like? Understanding who you are as a professional, as an aquatics professional, as a recreation professional. What do you like? What do you don't like? How do you express your opinions? How do you state the facts? And this is, I forget who said it, but somebody said, how do you insert your own personality? And I think that starts with understanding who you want to be and doing it in a way that's still professional, but that has your own little flair to your writing. Because definitely every piece of writing is very different when you think about when you read different authors or articles, and the tone and the word structure and the way they present their ideas. Okay, number 6, it allows us to activate our neurons in our brain. So when you're writing, those pathways are lit up in your brain. And it really helps us to overcome tasks. Sometimes you can't figure out how to start a proposal or an idea, or a piece of legislative writing, and you just have to sit down with a blank piece of paper and just jot down just even your old school word bubble, where the cloud, where you have to put, your ideas down. And allows you to set the goals to start your writing. And number 7, if you write down what you have in mind each day, you'll be able to, perform better when you write your goals down, and versus if you just think your goals. So I know when my mom went through breast cancer, she had a gratitude journal. So she kept it next to her bed, and every day she just wrote down one positive thing that she was feeling grateful for that day. So, that could be too during these hard, challenging times for our aquatics professionals and recreationals. What is one thing that you're grateful for? Maybe it's your team or somebody else stepping up to help you out. Okay, Number 8, if you constantly write about your thoughts, you'll never get out of sight of what you want to achieve, what your dreams are. So obviously it allows you to stay focused too. So again, writing down your goals or things you've always wanted to accomplish. This is a great time right now during COVID-19, when some of us are working from home, waiting for the go to open our pools, waiting for the go to start camps, brainstorm like crazy. Just get a notebook and write it down. It's also number 9, helps us overcome tough moments faster. So, research suggests that those that write about what's happening, when they identify it, then you'll be able to overcome those moments a little bit faster than those who don't, because identification is really the first step of overcoming a problem. And obviously, if you write it down, you'll have a historical record of your thoughts. So probably something more interesting than a simple photo album, that you've got those thoughts and ideas. So I always recommend too, like after you start a new program or you have really great in-service training, why? Just write down a list or type it out, or open up a new folder on your computer and just type out why it worked well and what didn't for next year. Okay, so for this slide, I loved this this on the left side here, this phrase. So a word is just a bunch of letters and sounds. A sentence is just a bunch of words. A paragraph is a bunch of sentences. And an essay is a bunch of paragraphs. It's super simple. So I like to think of this when we have writer's block, right? When I'm expected to write a 20-page paper on my chapter 3 of my dissertation, and I'm like, oh my gosh, where do I start? And you just sit there and stare at the screen. You might type out one word, then you delete it, and you're like, oh, that doesn't sound right. Just put stuff on the screen that know that if it's going to be a professional piece of writing, you're going to have anywhere from 1 to 5 drafts. And so just a bunch of letters and sounds is all it starts with. And so much like aquatics, we've got our droplet of water there, and it ripples out to a piece of writing. It can just be, if you're not sure how to write an email, that's going to be a difficult email to a coworker or a supervisor, or something you want to say, just start with a bunch of words, and all of a sudden it'll come out to paragraphs, and it's all about getting started. Okay, so that was a good segue to my next slide. So getting started, right? So you're sitting there and you've got to write a piece of legislative or a grant or a proposal. And Woody Allen calls the planning portion of writing the pace the floor part. So if you are an analytical thinker and you're somebody who really likes to break things down, so which many business writers are, this is a natural process, right? We can't, if you're an analytical person, you can't just jump right in and put whatever you want because it doesn't sound right. What if it doesn't look right? What if it's not categorized the way it's supposed to? And it's a hard concept to just jump right in. But sometimes, so this is what, was recommended, to just walk around, think what you want to say, and build out your thoughts. It really makes your brain hurt, but you have to kind of figure out all the interconnections and pace the floor before you start writing. Okay, so I have another discussion here. So let's see here. Discussion 2, is writing easy for you? Why or why not? And how does it make you feel? And I think I actually have a poll here. I'm going to bring it up and see if it works. Okay, so you should see on the screen here, what is your writing comfort level? Excellent, good, fair, poor. Or if you don't want to do the poll, you can always write in the chat. No, I hate it. Okay. I'm gaining further knowledge. That was the goal from before. I feel empowered when I write. I love that word, empowered. I've always loved to write. Depends. I would say it depends as well. Grammar is the worst for me. Yes, that's why they have programs called like Grammarly, which does it for you, which is wonderful. Yes, spell check as well. Yes, always depends. So it looks like people feel good overall, and depends on the audience. Thankful for spell check. Yes, I think we are thankful for spell check. That is for sure. So I'll go ahead and end the voting here. So it looks like, whoops, I don't know if that worked or not, but the most was good. So mostly people feel pretty good about their comfort writing level. And hopefully it's totally okay to feel like you're in the fair poor, and that's why you're here. Oh, you're deep in your doc program. I feel like my writing is worse. Oh, yes, you can definitely, it definitely for sure feels like you spend so much time writing your chapter, 2 or 3 in your dissertation, and then you send it into your committee and they just slash it to pieces. And then you end up, spending the next month or 2 revising it. So, okay, let's see here. Let me move on to the next question here. Thank you, everybody, for participating. E-text program works great, too. I like creative description, marketing style writing. Excellent. Okay, I didn't even think of that, marketing style writing. I would agree with that, Jennifer. Writing is easy once you get going. Sometimes the hardest part is just getting started. Okay, so here we're moving into translating from one language to another. Oh my gosh, that's a whole different ball game. Okay, so common email mistakes. So these are some things that I notice just in everyday Okay, can everybody hear me? Sorry about that. It does look like it keeps flashing that I have low internet connection. Yay for figuring things out. Okay. All right. So I think somebody said to go back to the last slide. So I'm just going to go back real quick. So yes, thank you for bearing with me and being patient and your flexibility. So your email mistakes, no more than 7 lines. Any longer than that, readability studies show that your readers just see a big blob, and you just kind of scan over the text. So don't do this. This is an example of a lifeguard. This is not an actual real email that I received, but in this email, you kind of look at it and you don't really you're like, I don't want to read all this. So you read a couple of lines. This girl uses LOL. She uses bomb.com. She talks about Insta. Her sign off is peace out. She offers useless and inappropriate information about her grandmother's bad gas. So a whole bunch of no-nos on here. Okay. And so what you do want to do is organize your thoughts. So you want to make it easy for your reader to scan. So I think somebody just talked about that. Joey said 2 scrolls of the thumb. That's my rule. Yes. So you want to be able to kind of, your eye looks at it and goes from the top to the bottom really nicely. So I feel like when your thoughts are organized well in a clear way, it allows the reader to really understand where you're coming from. Your thoughts are in a nice flow, and it results in less questions overall too. So the more clear you can make it in your emails, the less that you're going to have to go back and confirm. Well, sometimes if you leave space for interpretation there, then it just creates more emails, right? Well, what did you mean by XYZ? Like, I'm not sure what she meant by that. So include as much as you can. And bulleted lists are always good. So I'll show you an example of paragraphs are your friends. I like that. Thank you, Katie. Another Katie. Okay, so this is an example of a lane allocation email that I just sent out. And it's got 2 paragraphs, no more than 5 lines, looks like in the first one, and 4 in the second. And I've spaced out with numbers so everybody knows what's included. And we use like a formal good afternoon, and making sure that we're spell check and everything. So this is kind of just an example of separate paragraphs, the white space, using numbers to identify the various components of the email. Okay, next question. question. Thesaurus and synonyms are your friend for sure. Avoid those wimpy verbs that need helping word to enable the verb to do its job in a sentence. So I'll show you an example of that. Use the synonyms functions on Word and Outlook. I mean, that's definitely like if you want to sound smart, you know, sometimes it's not just about having a vocabulary, but searching for a different word that might be able to do what you're doing and have a greater impact on what you want to say. So I use thesaurus and synonyms a ton when I'm writing, but it's a really easy way to make it fancy. Just that little right click on Word and Outlook and it pops right up. So just change the verb can change everything. And I'll show you that in a second. Okay. So if you change the verb, this is an example. So a simple fix allows for a clear sentence and goal. And this is something that I learned from the Writing Center. So like 2 years ago when I first started the doctorate process, I submitted my first piece of writing and they were like, no, go to the Writing Center. So I did, and this was one of the first things I picked up. So Evan planned and worked on the technical aspect of the project plan. Simple way of saying it, Evan engineered the project plan. So simple, effective, clear, a little bit better punch with engineered instead of planned and worked on. Sounds a little wordy on the left. So that was just one thing that I picked up. Another example on changing the verb. Dolores walked into the room slowly and quietly with her head averted, hoping no one would notice she was late. While the left side sounds like a good novel that you want to read, not for business writing. So business writing, Dolores slinked into the room, hoping she would notice that she was late. So again, taking out walked quietly, the ly words too, I noticed too. One of my professors noticed that in my writing, that to just, keep it short and simple with a powerful verb there. Okay. So to sum it up, strong verbs, short sentences. So weak sentences frequently start with there is or there are. And I'll show you another example in a second here. So instead, just cut to the chase. Just find the real subject and start there. So I think about back in elementary school when you had to, old school, like underline the subject and circle the predicate. So we're really bringing back those baseline skills and building blocks to writing here and remembering them in our professional writing as aquatics professionals as well. So making sure, and I'll show you an example of that. So instead of there was a strong disagreement between the divisions about the reorganization structure, the two sides strongly disagreed about the reorganization structure. So it sounds a little bit more powerful on the right side. You're stating the two sides disagreed. It's your subject. What did they disagreed is your predicate there. What did they do? So just little tips and tricks for us to think about. This one, I find myself also, since I created this webinar, checking myself as well. So own your work. So avoid I think or I suggest or I wonder. Just confidently write I recommend, or even you could omit the I statement for business writing and say merge the divisions. Another piece of advice that I've learned through my doctoral program is that there's no place for I. In your first 2 years, they basically told us that you don't have an opinion, that your opinion doesn't matter, and that you use your reference material from the scholarly material. Those people matter until you finish your doctorate dissertation. So I've gotten away from using the word I, but obviously in the workplace, a little bit different. So, but regardless, be confident. If you've thought about it and you have an opinion, you know what you want to say, just say it. So I found myself writing an email the other day where I started typing, I'm thinking that, and I thought, nope, delete. This is what I want to say. And so that just is another trick too for business writing, or especially if you're writing a grant or something professional. I think that there is space for I think or I suggest or I'm thinking in more verbal dialogue. So if you're on a webinar that's a dialogue, and you're talking about difficult conversations, that's where that would be a little bit easier to use, but definitely not in technical business writing. Okay, the next one, avoid pronouns. So you want to dodge the awkward his or her dilemma and shift to the subject to plural as much as possible. So if you're, in today's day and world, that we really should avoid pronouns as much as possible unless they state what it is. And I know many of my colleagues, or for GW, my professors even, they at the bottom in their signature, they'll include their pronouns. So uses her, she, hers pronouns, unless they've identified that. So just, you never want to assume. We have family restrooms, we have non-gender bathrooms. Just be gender fluid. You just never know. So we don't assume just because someone's name is typically what we would think a girl's name or a boy's name. You don't know what pronoun they'll go by. So I'll give you an example here. So yeah, be gender fluid. A manager is trained to support his or her employees. Well, that might have been, that's fine. And at one point, we really want to just, if you can, get away from the his or her, because someone might be gender, they might not know yet. Just managers are trained to support their employees. Okay. So I've come to another discussion question here. So if we think about, generations, and we kind of talked about this in, talked about this in our pre-show. So thinking about the generation impact of our lifeguards who are 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, and, they're doing a lot of texting and Instagram and TikTok, and everything's very, visual for the way they learn. What is the importance of teaching our lifeguards and our counselors and instructors and programmers, CPOs, writing skills? Like, why spend the time to do that in our in-service trainings, or even right now, when folks are home and thinking outside the box of how we can be good role models. And looks like Rigo said writing skills are life skills. Agreed. Incident reports that can be understood. That is a huge, yes, definitely important part of just general life skills for writing. I can't tell you how many times we've had in-service trainings on writing appropriate reports. Proper writing can avoid confusion in case any documents may be evaluated legally. Absolutely. Every word matters on those reports, on those incident reports. One mishap, or, the way even the stating she broke her ankle or something, like, we're not medical professionals. So we have to teach them to not state that. Better communication in line between the generations. Absolutely. Consistency. Direct, unmitigated speech to ensure, thank you, Laura, understanding, absolutely, to bridge the gap from what we're thinking and where they're at, and to make sure that we're on the same page. Report cards are often the only contact a parent has with the instructor. They need to be more professional. Yes. So, and on most report cards, there's a line at the bottom, or evaluations for comments, right? So we want to teach our instructors to have proper language, professional verbiage in there. We could even give them a sheet with comments, pre-loaded comments they could write. Developing their critical thinking skills. Yes, Noreen, thank you. Love that. Empowering them to deal with members to increase their self-confidence. Yes, so they may not think that they need it right now, but absolutely for the future, and whatever they do, whether it's staying in recreation or going into the business world, who knows, they're going to need writing for something. Transferable skills, absolutely. Thank you, everybody. Absolutely. Just brings value to whatever you're doing. Okay, let's move on here. Thank you so much for all your feedback and participating in the interactive version. And that this slide kind of feeds into what we're talking about, the different generations. Oh yes, templates. Thank you, Noreen. We developed templates for callouts and candidates. I'm all about templates for emails, for responding to instructors, or for my lane invoices. I create tons of templates. It's just easier so you're not retyping the same thing over and over again. Thank you. And so for this slide, but if you don't learn to read and write, how are you ever going to text? So actually, I could put this out too in the discussion. Is texting a form of writing? Does it help or does it hurt? I know, we use GroupMe and no. Yeah, I mean, it's up for discussion for sure. Does it help? You could say that our teenagers are writing. Are they doing it well? Maybe, maybe not. Depends, but it can be very much misinterpreted as well. Staff would rather read text than check their email for sure. I mean, we really don't use email to interact with our younger staff. They just don't check it. I think they've checked it more often now because all their classes are online and they have to. So that could be a silver lining to all this, that getting the younger generation to start to move back to email. What are your thoughts on writing to the general public's literacy level? Well, somebody once told me that the general public, you're supposed to write to a 4th grade reading level. So, and I believe that's what the New York Times writes to as well. And so that would be my thoughts, which can be challenging sometimes, easier than others. Let me see here. Next slide. Yes, texting is always misinterpreted for sure. Okay, so 6 steps to writing a professional email. And we're going to go through different parts of an email for my last couple slides here. So the first part, obviously, you want to identify your goal. What are you going to be, what thoughts are you going to convey when you're sending this email? Consider your audience. Are you sending it to a boss, a supervisor? Are you sending it to a friend? Are you sending it to a parent? So how your voice and your audience and how you think you're going to be portrayed on the other end as you receive this email. Keep it short, clear, and strong for concise for emails. And proofread, revise, revise, revise. I can't tell how many times I've proofread emails, and even the 3rd or 4th run through, I still find mistakes. So nobody's perfect, and making sure, you might ask somebody if it's a really important email to look it over before you send it, or send it to someone and then send it out. And then use proper etiquette. We're going to talk about those in the next couple slides. Oh yes, know the difference between reply and reply all, for sure. Yes, nobody needs to hear about why you called out sick for like 100 employees that are on the blind CC. Remember those openings and closings. We'll talk about that, and then follow up. So use your flags, create different categories on your inbox. I have different color flags, and you can send timed email responses as well. Good time right now to go on lynda.com and look up Microsoft Office email and all the fun tips and tricks. If you've got a moment to watch one of those videos, it's a great resource. Okay. All right, writing a professional email. So you've got 4 parts, right? Your subject line, your greeting, the body, and the closing. And we'll go through each one. Oh, I didn't know Gmail had an undo send. That's interesting. Learning too on this end. All right. So discussion question number 4. What are your email pet peeves? And some of you have already been putting them in there, like reply all for sure. Autocorrect, like if you're writing an email for using Siri, can do some funny things. Oh, if they're too long. Yes. If they're rambling on an email, for sure. Someone couldn't stop. Yeah, so you save the brain dump for your first draft, or maybe on a Microsoft Word if you're, but don't ramble on an email. Spelling and grammar errors as well. Not replying in a timely manner for sure. Even if you just respond and say yes, thank you, planning on responding like later on this week. just so people know it. Run-on sentences, for sure. Putting the body of the email in the subject line. Yeah, we'll talk about subject lines next, actually. Unclear, the writer thinks it's crystal clear to them. So yes, I've been in those shoes before as well, where you think it sounds right. It sounds like on my end. I don't know why they're not getting that, but you might want to, for that, you could use an example. So for example, I'm thinking X, Y, or not, I'm thinking I would like to use the example as X, Y, Z. Putting you instead of you. Yes. So that's what we find with the younger generation, misinterpreting the text lingo in actual emails as well. Save the I hope you're well for the end of the email. Yes, I would agree with that as well. Okay, and then these are just some of the top 10 spelling peeves on the right here. The difference between you and you are, really thinking about you are if you're saying that. And the two, and two, all fun, elementary school grammar techniques that we just have to remember as adults. Okay, add irregardless. Yes, I will. Thank you, Leah. Thank you, everybody, for participating in the interactive comments here. So, subject lines, short phrase, right, that summarizes the reason for your message or the goal of your communication. So, it's important to include a subject line when you're sending a professional email so your audience knows exactly what you expect and is able to locate that message easily if needed. So, if you put a subject line, you should be able to search it in your email if you don't know where it is. For example, follow up product presentation or something. Keep it short. You never want to use full names. You just initials if you have to on subject lines. And business insiders suggest that eliminating filler words that don't add anything to your message, like words like hello and thanks, they can go in the body. You don't want to stuff them in the subject line. Don't use cap locks, right? That kind of assumes that you're yelling at someone, or if it's really, really, really important, I would assume that if it's really, really that important, you'd be calling them or getting in contact with them with a different way. So your subject line should directly reflect the content of the message. So don't waste time writing too much. Don't be creative. Nothing flowery, just basic. Oh, and then another quick tip. Sometimes I'll take away the re or the forward if I want someone to look at it. So if it's, something that one of my supervisors forwarded down to me, instead of just hitting forward to my direct reports, I'll take out the FWD, because I don't know about you, but if I see that an email was forwarded to me and it's the end of the day and you got 10 minutes left and you just want to scan through your email to make sure you hit all the important things for the day, if I see a re or a forward, I sometimes tend to skim over it. So just taking out, I delete those 3 words there, or 2 letters, I should say. Okay, so email greetings. Think about what's the relationship to your recipient, and making sure that you are using the right greeting for the right recipient relationship. So what is the recipient's perspective or context, right? Do you have a little bit more professional relationship with the person you're sending it to, or do you have a more of a friendship built to a coworker that you can use a different type of greeting, right? Obviously, if it's an email to someone who is higher up, or military or something, you might say dear, use the dear. But generally, think about their different greetings, like good morning, or kind of moving away from hi or hello. But it's important to think about, if you've never met the subject or the recipient, you should always use a formal email salutation. So if you have a friendly personal relationship with the recipient, you can afford to use a more casual greeting. If the recipient has no idea who you are and you're trying to set the tone for your professionalism, consider how they would respond. So that kind of goes hand in hand with their information. it really, the email salutation sets the tone for the email. So consider what you're writing about and who you're writing to. Okay. Corey, how should you fix someone else's greetings? Do you mean like I guess I would just have a conversation and be like, oh, hey, send them a list. I'll show you in one of the next slides 79 different greetings and closings from Forbes.com. Just to be creative too. I think it's a coaching moment too, and it depends if they're open to feedback or not. But in the reply, yes, that's another good way too. Okay, so where are my slides at here? Examples, yes. So hello, greetings, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thinking about the gender fluidity concept too. So I think about if we're emailing back from parents or somebody or a lifeguard or someone you don't know if it's a his or her, or a Mrs. or a Miss. So you might just do Ms. or Mr. Even then, it stick to something like greetings to try to keep it professional. So, or allow me to introduce myself. Just be, creative on this aspect. Sometimes we get stuck with our basic protocol, and we get into our groove of checking emails, and we always do like hello, and we always do thanks at the bottom. Kind of just change it up. There's so many different ways to do it. Email closings. So according to Forbes.com, there's 89 different ways to sign off on an email, right? And these are just 8 of the most popular ones. Definitely, I think thanks is a little bit more informal. I like regards, best regards. If I'm asking for help with something, I might say thank you in advance. Kind regards is also very nice, has a nice tone to it, but stick this on your bookmarks list and just think about, when you do send out an email or something or a proposal or a letter, that you can sign off differently. Okay, so wrapping up here, I just have some tips and tricks here of my own. So just be consistent. You can't emphasize that enough, and be concise. So consistent means if you have your signature at the bottom, it should be consistent for all your signatures. Consistent with the font, right? You don't want to have different fonts all over your email. Consistent with the size of your font, and consistent with how it looks too, with the spacing, and make sure it's relevant, right? We're not including, like in that awful example I used before where she was talking about her grandma's bad gas or something. Is it relevant to what you're sending? Because you want to be respectful of that person's time and their space of reading it too, just like you would want someone to be respectful of your time when they're sending it to you. Read it out loud. I read my papers out loud, and that's when I catch the most amount of mistakes, is when I read it out loud. A trick, Christopher says, a trick I use is the salutation is built into my signature and that it's stacked into all my emails. Yes, you can do, have it, that setting on Microsoft Office as well. Another tips and trick here, give examples. So that kind of helps decrease the, if people are wondering what you mean by that. Use templates. I make sure that I have the font and the size and the paragraphs. It just saves you time overall with re-explaining what you mean by things. And also make it visually appealing. We talked about the white space there. Provide transitions. First, I'd like to talk about XYZ, like you're writing a letter. Next paragraph. Next, I'd like to speak to the importance of the financial aspect of adding this program to our organization because it will XYZ. So also making sure that you have all those references in there too. And check your work, right? Be open to hearing feedback. If there's one thing I've learned from taking my grad classes, it's being open to criticism for my writing, for sure. It's okay. It's only going to make you better in the long run. So nobody's perfect. We're all still learning, including myself. Okay, yes. And make sure that you follow up. Okay. Shout out to my friend Damaris for this one because I can remember 2 years ago, I was in AOAP and we were walking around the big forum where all the free stuff and, all the vendors are. And, I just started my doctorate program and I was doing a lot of writing on aquatics. And she said, you should go meet the Aquatics International folks. And they had their tent right there. And then like the chief editor was there and I got her picture and I never would have went over if it weren't for my friend Tamara. So, and she's already published a whole bunch of things. So total confidence booster right there. It's always good to have somebody else be like, you can do it. Why not? So choose a topic that you're passionate about, right? Research and write about it. We all have our little niche in aquatics, whether you just love teaching swim lessons or you're all about lifeguard classes or water safety, or even if you're just a regular, a recreational programmer. Everybody has their cool niche. My little niche right now is the open water lifeguarding certification stuff. So I'm planning on submitting something about that. What makes you stand out as a writer? And another point to somebody else who asked the question of how do you have your own personality in your writing? Well, that's your niche, right? Like someone connects you to that. And now when I go to conferences, people know like, oh, that's Katie. She's the triathlon girl. Like find that little piece that makes, like, I know Kelly Martinez and Joey are all about like the fun activities that they bring to their program and high energy. And that's what I think of for them. So, brand yourself for your writing too, and just submit it. We've got the time. I've got my little Post-it note here. Submit publications to Parks and Rec. So it's definitely on my list of things to do during this whole stay-at-home agenda. And finally here, a professional writer is an amateur who didn't quit, right? So we're all amateurs. Richard Bach is an American writer. He's known for his work in the 1970s. And just knowing that we're all amateurs. So just try, give it a whirl, even if you think that, find that confidence and submit it. You just never know. Okay, and then another lifesaver for me is Grammarly. I installed this on my computer day one and of my whole program, and it's saved me. So it changes your sentences. It's free. You can actually pay for a paid edition. You can set the settings to the type of work that you're typing. Is it professional, casual? Are you being descriptive? Are you trying to sell something? And it will help you adjust your writing based on the goal of your topic. I know we tried to get this on our county computers and there were some issues with cybersecurity. So I can't speak to that, but I know I have it on my Mac and it's wonderful. So, when I'm done writing a piece of writing, I'll send it through Grammarly and then save it. And then I'll send it to somebody else and have them read it and then send me their edits as well. So always making sure that you have a coworker or a friend who can help you with your revision. Okay, so this is my last takeaway here. What's one thing right on the dime? It's 1:59. What are some takeaways that you gained? I know I maybe didn't answer all your questions about like how to write proposals and things like that. Maybe I'll do another webinar at some point on proposals I've written in the past and structure and templates and things like that. Maybe we can add more to it for sure. Those are all really great ideas. I know some folks talked about the language barrier in writing. So does anybody have any takeaways or when they learned blank or I never thought about XYZ, white space, yes. Or just a reminder to continue writing or the importance of it or bringing some of these little tips and tricks back to your staff members. Reread everything before sending. Does Grammarly change your text or does it make suggestions? It makes a suggestion and then if you click approve, then it'll change it. Oh, good. I'm glad there were some good ideas. Excellent. And you guys gave me some good ideas too for future presentations on different parts of specifics of proposals and things like that. Writing stuff down. I'm an extrovert. Yes, for sure. It's that balance. I'm an extrovert as well of thinking inward and processing in here, but also getting it out. Writing a report proposal has more power than just talking about an idea in a meeting. Yes, thank you, Joey. Okay, so let me see if I can make Joey a presenter here for the post show. Thank you, everybody, for coming. It's 2:01 now, so if you want to stay for the post show, but I know all the best to Katie. Christelle, she's with a family emergency. So thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. Thanks for hanging in with me today. And Joey, let me see if I can. There you go. I think I just made Joey a presenter. Oh, here he comes. Thanks, Joey, for last minute coming in. Oh, do I have to, is your sound on? Oh, unlock mic. Sorry, I think I had to unlock your mic. There it goes. Still learning the functions as the host here. Reload. Okay, so hopefully you guys, everybody took a tip or trick away from today. I don't know why Joey's It looks like his sound is on. I've got your sound and your presenter mode on here. So those of you who still stayed for the post show, hopefully while Joe is getting his mic going here, what are some things that maybe we're missing or things you were surprised about that you'd like to see in the future? And we can look at these comments. I can look at them afterwards, or things that you never really thought about that you'll take back to your team.
Katie, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I've been having trouble with my mics all day.
No
Between
worries.
the computer and the webcam, the realities of technology. Katie, great session. Thank you. I have to say that I'm not the best writer. My background is not good in school. I appreciated that because I have to work extra hard to go back and review things. But I was laughing because now with technology, sometimes we all share a screen on a meeting so people can see when you can't spell anything, or, when we normally do some of these tactics that you shared about to send it to a friend or read it, we're becoming a little bit more exposed out there with technology.
For sure. And even the little 3 dots you see like on your general text message, I always get nervous when I see those. I'm like, oh no, am I taking too long? Or if you can see them for a while, you're like, oh, it must be really important. They're typing something really long.
And I thought it was great too. I just wanted to say the power of a report because I've been in many organizations where people say, how did you get that approved? And there's a big difference between I'm just talking about ideas in meetings and I'm going to put this on a report on paper. It comes with more weights. And I think all the tools and tactics you've shared with everyone help that, right? People can put their thoughts on paper in a report and it has more power and chance of being approved. So I thought that, this was a great relevant session for that.
Thank you. Yeah. And I'm really interested too in, the generational topic too. It just boggles my mind how do we, like you talk about, bridging the gap between our young lifeguards and swim instructors who are just in this mode all the time. And are not, are they writing, you know, I know that they have to write for their schoolwork and things like that, but how do we encourage them in the actual workplace and intertwine that in our in-service trainings and things like that?
And they're writing reports, they're writing report cards, they're writing notes to supervisors or updates and things like that. So, but it's not something you would think to put in a training, but maybe this is a great opportunity for people to do little micro trainings, right? So, you know, here's a small 5-minute video here and there with some of these writing tips to help them as well would be maybe a good way to do that as well.
Do you find, so what's your writing process, Joey? I know you have a ton of good ideas.
So I'm a visual guy, so I can tell you that I have a big chalkboard in my house, and I just start putting what's in my brain on paper, and I liked your ripple thing, and I find that even just putting words down, they then turn into sentences, and we can stream them together. Even if I'm architecting a training, I'll put ideas on individual papers, and then I can move them around, and then from that it transitions to a more formal training agenda or plan. But one of the things in this that I think writing is very relevant in our industry is when we're writing training plans that other people have to interpret and execute. So I might have people coming to do a station. I have to be very clear. And we as an industry have to be very clear with what those expectations are, because then they read them and they thought they knew from the meeting, but it reads differently. So writing is very important in that aspect as well.
Yes, for sure. And I think of training manuals and pump room expectations and things like that. You want to be as clear as possible, so as consistent, so no matter who reads it, they'll be able to understand it.
So for typical post show, I think we should talk about some of the upcoming POOLaides that have happened. So let's just let everyone know that all of her past POOLaides, if this is your first time joining the series, they are all available on her website, and I'm sure the link will be in the post show notes. She will have this one. Usually it's like, what, a day the next day it's usually up, right, Katie?
Yes, I think she said she'll have it posted by Friday, but I don't know based on her family situation right now if that will change.
It might take, yeah. And then we have scheduled on April 24th, the cross-country checkup. And I believe what she was going to do is really just open that up to everyone that's been viewing these to kind of check in and have some dialogue about what's happening, was the vision that she had for that. So that's going to be really exciting for people to check out on Friday. And that's at 1 Eastern Standard Time. And then she's got some more on her website as well. She has health and safety, supply, staffing, etc. That's coming up on the 27th. And I'm not sure who that one's with. And then engaging youth, developing a junior life-saving club. That's coming up on the 29th. So there's lots of great, exciting sessions coming up. So I just wanted to get a chance to throw those out.
Yes, thank you for sure. And I know there's a bunch of other webinars going on too. I've got another one tomorrow through the National Parks and Rec for online in-services. And then there's another one on Friday too. I'm not sure if I remember the title of that, but I don't know. Did you know about the one tomorrow about online in-services?
Yeah, I saw that one. You can find out if you're not connected. Definitely reach out and get connected through joining AOAP. They send out a publication with lots of those. You can go, I think the NRPA has an Aquatic Facebook group. There's an Aquatic Manager and Director Facebook group. Of course, there's Lifeguard Authority Facebook group. And the community is very active with posting all of these different webinars during this period of time. So people, I think, can get in touch with those that way as well. And then update those maps. Did you see that cool map where you can update your pool closures?
Yes, for sure. And I know there's a lot of great webinars happening too with just localized. I know we had one this morning with Northern Virginia, all the pools. We've got a big Excel document with exactly when we're opening, things that we're doing. We just filmed a whole bunch of videos with our team yesterday, some aquatic programming videos. So we're editing those now, but those should be on our online recreational space this next week. So it's totally different outside the box, but we'll see how that goes.
Well, and writing for the public has become, big with everyone having to post some social media content out there to engage our communities. I find that those are some of the most difficult, or like I talk a lot. So even in my group, I find it hard to get my thoughts into concise messages. So you had some ideas there. One of the things I was thinking about when you were talking on your session today, as a call to action for people, is after you've just gone through your slides and learned what you learned, maybe people can go back into their sent items and do an audit of like 5 emails that they've sent and say, okay, based on what I learned, how good am I here? And maybe identify the top 3 examples of what you were talking about. Put a little note on a sticky on your monitor, and then that can maybe be a fresh reminder. I always like to think when I'm listening to these sessions, what can I put into action and do differently? So I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Almost like the conferences when we go to AOAP or your local sessions, you get inundated, right, with all this new information, ideas, and you go to like 10 sessions a day, and you're so excited, and then you come home and you're like, what did I learn? What can I put into practice? I forgot all of it. So it's good to just, while it's fresh, I love that idea, writing it down, putting it information to practice, right? Into what your everyday, changing your routine. That's the hardest thing, to put a little note on your computer.
So another tip about writing, because you're talking about conferences, is have you ever been to a conference, written notes down, and gone back to your notebook and read it and been like, what the heck did I write that for? What does it mean? Because you're writing so quick in sessions.
Yes.
So here's my tip to the people out there. When I'm at conferences, I take my notebook and I write my notes on the one side of the page from what I'm learning from the session. So let's say I'm learning about writing, so here's all the tips. And then on the other page, I write my action items, what I need to do when I go back, right? So I need to create little mini micro trainings for writing. I need to, audit my things. So then I can look on this side of the page for my, like what I need to do, and then go back to this side of the page for backup support and resources. And that's kind of my approach whenever I watch a webinar, I go to a conference or something like that to help do that. It's kind of like action items, resource. Because if we just go back to read what we did, we might lose that thought of how we want to apply that in our life, right? So
yeah, that's a great tip. I use OneNote on the Microsoft Office suite, and then I'll just make like a whole new tab for that, and then I'll say like the title of like Joey's session at 1 o'clock and on Tuesday, and then I'll just type it in through there. But
the great thing with OneNote is you can forward an email to a page on your OneNote. Did you know that?
Yes, I did.
So then after you get the follow-up email on that, you can attach that page to that note, which I think is great as well. Another thing I liked about what you were talking about is knowing your weaknesses, because like I know like I'm not smart when it comes to grammar. If you quiz me on nouns, verbs, and things, that's not my strength. So knowing your weaknesses and working with professional development, but also having other people edit it. I wanted to ask you, have you always been strong with writing? What have you done you talked about one course. What are some other inputs you've done aside from this webinar that people can go to strengthen their writing skills?
That's a great question, actually, Joey. Gosh, I have to think about that. I feel like I don't want to sit here and be like, oh, it's been good. No, for sure. I think
you can. That could be your skill.
No, I think I've just been open to feedback. You know what it was? I have a secret weapon. My mom. Okay. My mom is a retired principal and teacher, and all growing up, she would revise my essays, and we would go back through it at the kitchen table. And any resume writing, she had me go through over and over again. So I honestly owe it to my upbringing, I think, and just asking for help and feedback and tips and what do you think? And does this look right? Does it sound right? And it's hard to be open because you have, you want to be like, well, I worked really hard on that, or to be open to that positive, constructive feedback.
That's great. And I think everyone that's still with us, if you've done something in your professional career with writing or have a link, maybe you can pop it in there in the text discussion. What's it called? A chat box. And then we can maybe share those as well with everyone in the post show notes. So any ideas that people might have. That Grammarly thing's not something I use and that you were talking about. That's smart. I definitely think I should check that out because that could be technology to help me be more successful for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I can try to find some resources too. I know there's tons like lynda.com, and YouTube even has lots of writing resources there. Or oh, writing seminars. Yeah, writing seminars are wonderful. It's like you can have like a 12-hour stint they have for some grad work folks who are writing their dissertation. You just literally sit in a room and you go back and forth and you write and you revise and you write for 12-hour sessions. So they have some of those as well available. Management Learn So Much. Oh, good. Quill.org, when I was still teaching language arts, great lessons. Yes, all those past English teachers out there, for sure. Don't allow myself to send a text message without proper grammar. Yes, I'm always recorrecting too.
And I'm a little different on this perspective with text messages. When I'm texting my team members, I talk to them in the language that they understand. So I'll put a you with that. That's just my style and approach for that, because if I'm texting them, it's usually something informal, right? Like, hey, here's what's going on, whatever, LOL. But if I'm sending a formal communication, it's kind of depending on the circumstance, the email goes out. But I'm also really encouraging people, because these kids, they're not reading as much these days. Like the 2-thumb scroll, if they're having to go scroll more than 2 thumbs, you've lost them. So I'm trying to do videos as well, right? So if I can just do a quick 90-second video, they click a link, they're on the bus on the way to school, they can watch that. I find that that's helpful as well. So it is interesting because, there's an argument, like you were saying, know your audience when you're like addressing it to the management, right? We manage up one way. I don't know. What is your thought? Should we always have that professional line when we're engaging our team members below? What are your thoughts? Or should we know differently? We change our language up. Should we also be changing it down? Add your thoughts in the text box, everyone. Katie, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, the bar is always high for myself and for everybody else. And I don't know, I live up here. I always say
Yeah.
And I expect everybody else. It could be a fault for sure. It is a fault of mine, as I expect a lot all the time. And I expect, from my team and everything that we're putting forth the best professional all the time. But for sure, I put out a video I was doing when we were filming all our fun programming videos yesterday. I tried to make a little TikTok video way out of my comfort zone too for the lifeguards and the instructors. And I just did a little fun thing, and that was really sporadic and informal and probably not very good grammar. But so, yeah, depends on your audience.
Yeah, and that's what Narina said in the chat here. She's saying it depends on the work team and what the circumstances are. And I agree. And I think it depends on kind of like who you are. Like this is a strength of yours and that works with your leadership style. I've got my example. We've got some other great points here about you want to role model, but also you want to be human. People are saying here about they struggle when they get into the professional world. So I try to set an example for them. Steve, I think that's a great point too, because we really are a first-time employer and we're preparing them for that next step, right? So that is a really good point that we are preparing them. We don't want them to take our role modeling habits into that next stage differently. So that's a good perspective there.
Yes, definitely. All these are great thoughts here. I'm trying to scroll up as they come in. Communicate up and down. I like that. If you want something, it's in your best interest to adjust your communication to get the outcome that you want. Yeah, and I know where we use GroupMe, some of our lifeguards have expressed that they don't like it when we send large paragraphs on GroupMe. They are very outspoken about if it's longer than a couple of sentences, they will not and do not want to read it, especially if it goes into multiple GroupMe texts at once.
Right.
So they'll tell you most of the time.
And maybe that's a good thing, is that you could even do a check once a year, a survey, and ask your team at a training or send out a survey and say, how are my communications to you? Because I know I've had people come to me back in my career and say, Joey, that email was so long. And really, I was communicating a few things, but I was trying to be all, through that. So maybe that's a good self-check, is that we could be reaching out to our direct reports, like a 360 evaluation on kind of some writing as a development option as well.
For sure. Yeah, and I do want to include, so I feel bad that I didn't include some scholarly references and how to cite. I just wasn't sure how much, when they say we talk about the bridge between practical and scholarly bridge, and how much you need and push-pull in the workplace and things like that. So I think attaching a professional reference has a huge weight and volume too, just from some of the aquatics publications.
Yeah, that's good. Steve saying you mentioned earlier about including a brief lesson on professional communication and training. And I do that as well. Some teenage employees just ignore it, but I've had a lot of team members reach out for tips and advice after these trainings. Yeah. Another one you said about, you mentioned a resume earlier. Like, I notice a lot of bad resumes these days. Like, resume writing, definitely. If you haven't had like 3 people look at your resume, get people to look at it. And I always say the time to work on your resume is not when you're applying for a job, because you don't have time to really work on it. So like do it now, like during this COVID crisis, send out your resume, get some feedback from your peers, or look at different formats. Really look at your resume from this new lens after your session today on writing, and say, how well have I done with my grammar, and how it's formatted, and sentences, words, paragraphs, and all of those.
In my section about powerful verbs, and strong sentences is huge for resume writing. That's one thing I learned from revising in that process, is like the verbs. If you just Google resume verbs, like communicated, coordinated, and you're never supposed to use the same verb twice. And even those little bullets that in your resume, each one should make a powerful statement that really exemplifies everything you've done, and that you're multifaceted, and you sound amazing.
Yeah. And you could really just take the same experience, write it differently, and look like a superstar compared to another resume. I always tell people as well, you should write a resume with the job description or the job posting beside the resume. So you want to use the language and mirror the language that they're communicating with what it is. So it could be the same function, but how are they in their organization referring to that function? And then use similar language that way as well. And I think that goes back to knowing your audience with some of that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Joey, for helping out the post-show last minute. I'm sure you weren't planning on that, but I really appreciate it.
No worries. I do have to go. I have a 2:30 I should get prepped for, but great session. Yep. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Join Lifeguard Authority group on Facebook.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. Take care.